Hello and welcome to Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston. I'm your host. I'm also the national spokesperson for Social Charity.org. Social Charity.org. We are promoting Section 664 and social charity, that terminology, the term that you've probably never heard. But 664 is a section of the tax code, and just like Section 401k, we want you to get familiar with that. That's what this program is about, but it's also about building endowment. It's also about creating charitable wealth in this country and also creating ways to use charitable wealth appropriately. We are in a world situation today that's hard to comprehend in our current world. There are things that are happening that are very hard to deal with. I don't believe that it's effective to keep showing over and over again the atrocities that are happening, but rather they should be showing you ways that you can actually do something to help. You can individually do something to help. You can do that through your own financial or volunteer, contributions, so you can help solve some of these problems that the people have who are in this horrible situation in Ukraine. My guests today are both about how to help. The first is a gentleman who has coached thousands of people and coached them in ways that are quite unique with regard to solving problems. And my second guest is Oksana Pasaki, who is a Ukrainian lady who has been very much involved in getting direct help to the Ukrainian people. So let's go to the first interview that was done a couple of days ago. And here's that interview. Yeah, so my guest is Berry Fowler. Berry is the originator of the Sylvan Learning Centers, right? You started that, and now you're into the coaching world. You've trained over 6,000 folks who can qualify as coaches. Tell me the difference
actually,
between,
Les, that number, I may brag, that number is almost 10,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between a coach and teaching, coaching and teaching?
Well, coaching is more a collaboration, and in teaching, the teacher is kind of considered the expert and is imparting knowledge and basically providing directions on what students should do. A coach, on the other hand, is on a more level playing field. It's a collaborative relationship that's built on trust and respect. And a coach, rather than advising or consulting, a coach is there to help clients answer questions that'll help them change their life. And rather than giving directions, we help our clients to develop the best answers for their particular situation.
So in that process, you're working with your clients come to you. How do they come to you? They come to you through the website Success?
Lots of different ways. Our coaches do, different types of marketing to gain clients. If quickly, it becomes mostly word of mouth when clients have an excellent experience and have measurable results. They tend to share that with their friends. And that's really the absolute best way for our coaches to grow their practice. But as we train coaches, a large part of our training is not only how to coach, but how do you launch and grow a successful business at the same time.
That's an interesting point, because I do know a lot of people who are coaches, and I've always wondered, how do you determine who is and who isn't, and what is the way of measuring their potential as a good coach for your situation? I mean, there are so many. Every situation is like a fingerprint, I guess. Everybody's got an individual situation.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say is the criteria to do
Well,
that?
most of our coaches specialize, and they typically follow a specialty or a niche that they are passionate about and probably have experience um, in the real world prior to them becoming coaches. And so one of the ways that a potential client can really vet an individual coach is almost all coaches offer a free introductory session. And if I was looking for a coach, that would be a very important get together, as well as reviewing some of the reviews and testimonials that a particular coach has.
So if you're working on a particular problem, right now, I know that you're um, pretty heavily involved in helping the folks in Ukraine. That appears to be one of your primary objectives right now because of the situation we have in the world today. So tell me a little bit about how that works, if you would.
Yeah, we, I mean, unless you don't have a heart, you can't, pay and are not paying attention to what's happening. You can't help but feel terrible for especially the refugees, but certainly the whole situation. It's just horrible. It's terrible. And I've been training coaches and for really over 4 decades. Coaching was an element, and one of the reasons Sylvan was so successful was that not only did we teach kids how to read or do math, we also coached them to develop some self-esteem. A lot of the kids came to us and they were, a couple of years behind in reading and they felt stupid. So I developed a coaching program 40 years ago, and it's obviously morphed and grown over the years. And do you remember Hurricane Harvey?
Yes, I
3 or 4 years
do.
ago.
I mean, I wasn't in it, but I remember the name, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Hurricane Harvey came to Texas and Louisiana, a lot of my graduates, my coaches, we got together and we decided, wouldn't it be nice to provide pro bono coaching to some of these individuals and families that had lost everything?
Yeah.
So I created another element to my coach training that I called my disaster relief and recovery coach program.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And we had scores of people volunteering to help folks. Since then, have come other hurricanes and wildfires and tornadoes like in New Orleans last night. And I have a whole cadre of these big-hearted, trained coaches that volunteer their services. But when we started noticing that there, I think this morning I heard, that it's 3.5 million refugees from Ukraine.
It's getting bigger, yeah.
And it's going to grow. And on top of that, we had 60 coach graduates in my program living in Ukraine.
Really?
And another 200 plus living in other places in the world. And so we decided, when I say we, my wife and I decided, we have something that can be very helpful to these refugees, our disaster relief and recovery coach training program. And so we decided we're going to give it to people that make a promise that they're going to coach at least 5 individuals or families or even groups in that refugee population. And
how did they get them to do that, Berry? My guess is Berry Fowler. Berry is a coach's coach. Teaches people how to be coaches in a sense, and helps them become valuable members of the community to people who need coaching. And right now we're talking about the Ukraine situation and coaching people through that to that issue. But how do they know who the coaches are? The coaches walk around and go, I'm a coach for this.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty easy. It seems to be able to spread the word that our coaches are available. And in a disaster recovery kind of situation, our coaching is really most effective after the refugee, the victim of the disaster, in this case, the war in Ukraine, after their basic needs have been served. First of all, it's safety, and then
Right.
it's of course food, shelter,
Right.
medical, and
Right.
so
How do you navigate all that? That's the coach's job to teach them, I guess, right?
well, actually, there are so many great organizations that are already doing that.
Uh-huh.
They're there to in a sense greet people as they first come in and help them get situated. And our coaches, and part of our training, actually, there's some training that if you meet somebody that's just escaped from a disaster situation, they kind of have that 1,000-yard stare. They're still in
Yeah.
shock. And so
Yes.
there are things that we can do, but our coaching is so effective after the initial services start to level out. And that question of what next comes into the mind.
Right.
And that's where our coaches can be so valuable. So it's not necessarily people that have come across and have been there a few days. It's really weeks or even sometimes months down the road where things have kind of settled, but people are still carrying that baggage. And one of the things that our coaches are trained to do and have the tools and exercises to help clients kind of begin to release that trauma and then start to think forward of making really well articulated plans and mapping out sequential action steps that they can take to improve their lives. And we have this idea that even though my coaches and coaches that join us in this disaster relief and recovery program promise to coach at least 5 individuals or families, that many times some of those individuals will decide that they want to offer this coaching that they've gone through as well. So it's kind of like coach one, teach one, and do more. And so we've decided, I've been blessed and live a very fortunate life that I can afford to develop these programs. And Ann and I can afford to fund the cost of getting this to people. And so with that little promise of coaching 5 people, there's no fee to learn the program. And it takes people about 14, 16 hours of time. And we actually we actually hold our students accountable, and they're not certified until they've tested successfully through the course.
Right.
But
They're learning hands-on, I guess. All of these
oh yeah,
folks,
oh yeah,
they're getting quite an experience. So when you're dealing with this profession, you're basically creating an additional profession in the sense of these coaches of coaching, life coaching. That's the basis, I would say. Is that a fair definition? Life coaching, would that?
yeah. That's we actually have a number of programs. Be professional coach course that falls under the umbrella of life coaching. I also have a master business coach course, and that's designed for folks that want to help small business owners, which is, for me, as always having had my own business, I mean, that's where my passion, that was my niche, helping small business owners. And so we have lots and lots of experienced folks, and maybe they're starting to think about their fourth quarter career, and they want to do something that's meaningful. And so many of us, I don't, I think feel an urge to leave a very positive legacy. And so
It's a wonderful thing.
for many of my master business coaches,
Mhm.
even though it can provide incredible supplemental income, it's our way of continuing to remain relevant, do
Mhm.
something really positive. As a coach, when you own your own business, you pick and choose who you want to deal with. So you're only dealing with, I always tell coaches, with your own practice, if you're thinking of a particular niche or specialty, the best way to do it, think of the people you enjoy spending your time with and what do they need from a coach. And that's probably your best niche.
That's
So,
beautiful. Yeah.
but life coaching, the term life coaching, even my master business coaches, um, I include the life coaching part because in my experience over 4+ decades that I've coached, every business client that I've had that have hired me to come in and help their business, always as that relationship matures, it always moves into life coaching too,
Sure.
because you can't separate your personal and professional life when you're a business owner. I mean,
No, you can't.
you're 24/7 a combination of a human being and a business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough sometimes for people to acclimate themselves to that thought process. But and some people are only business and business only all the time, and then there's less humanity. Of course, this is Route 664, the road to human kindness, and human kindness is the idea of sharing knowledge, of helping others, and certainly if you can help somebody in a time of need as you're doing, Berry. My guest is Berry Fowler. Berry is master coach. And what's the entry into, what's the portal to becoming part of your work?
Um,
How do people get to that?
Yeah, well, surprisingly, people from all walks of life can become very successful and effective coaches.
Mhm.
And we did a study about 5 or 6 years ago among our most successful coaches because we wanted to know what are the characteristics that make the most successful coaches.
Mhm.
And we were so surprised, Les, because we thought it might be years of experience or their, graduate degrees.
Mhm.
But, the crazy thing was, and it sounds a little sappy, but it's absolutely true. The number one characteristic of the best coaches was that genuine, heartfelt calling to help others. And we teach a coaching system that I created, as I say, 40+ years ago. And it's kind of bulletproof because it's paint by numbers. And our students get the tools, they master the techniques, they gain all the knowledge of coaching, and our training is hands-on. So while they're in the course, they actually do a lot of practice coaching. And when they're finished, they're ready to go. 99+% of our students, we ask everyone all the way back to 2008, do you feel confident and prepared to provide
Mhm.
excellent coaching?
That's
And
great.
virtually everyone says yes.
That's
So
wonderful.
people with diverse backgrounds, I call them big-hearted people
Well,
because
that's
that's,
it. That's
yeah.
human kindness that comes from big heartedness. And Barry, I want to thank you very much for the time this morning. Is there a website that folks can visit or a telephone number for listeners out there who want to get in touch with your organization and learn whether or not they have coaching capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. We our website is pretty simple. It's FIA, Fowler International Academy, FIAcoaching.com. And we do have a 800 number. It's 888-314-0000. 0114. And guess what, Les? I have real live human beings that answer those phones.
Well, that's a good thing to know. Thank you very much for that, because that's one of the things that really gets people annoyed. Not being able to speak to somebody, dial this, dial that, press this, press that, and you end up back in the same place. Berry Fowler, thank you very much for joining us today on Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness, and coaching folks through kindness, coaching, caring about people, seeing the end result that the people would like to get to is really an amazing thing. And I thank you very much for the work that you do. Appreciate it.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Berry. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulty reaching Oksana Pasecki. She was supposed to join us by Zoom, but that's the way things go sometimes. I can tell you that she was a terrific speaker for us at the Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber of Commerce meeting, our last breakfast meeting. And you can find that information on our website at asibchamber.org, asibchamber.org, for the information that she shared with us with regard to how to directly help the Ukrainian people through nonprofit organizations that have been vetted, that have shown that they will do what they say they're going to do, and have provided consistent relief to those in need in Ukraine. So that's, once again, go to the asibchamber.org website. That's the Aventura Sunny Isles Beach Chamber.org website, and you can find that information there. If you're interested in getting in touch with Oksana, we can provide you with that information as well. If you'll just reach out to us on the Social Charity website, which is socialsecharity.org website. This program is the Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. This program is basically about philanthropy, how we can change the world through our own philanthropy, through our own benefits from philanthropy. That's kind of a new way of looking at things, where the government said to you back in 1969, when they passed Section 664 of the tax code and created the other social charity sections of the tax code, they said, if you do something good for charity while you're alive, we'll give you lower taxes while you're alive. And that's something that most people don't know that they can take advantage of. So we want to make sure that you know that those things exist, and also that there are advisors who can help you with that process, who can help you become a philanthropist. You don't have to be ultra wealthy to be a philanthropist. You can be a philanthropist at very reasonable levels, because the philanthropy is beneficial to you because you pay less tax. That's one of the arguments that we make for the public to be more aware of how this works. And it was designed for this purpose. It was designed to get the public to become more aware of how the charitable wealth in the country can change the concept of how services are provided, who takes care of the people that are in need. It needs to be done at the community level through nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations that are funded through endowment. So we want to endow those organizations. The best way to endow them is through a system that the government gave us, which is Section 664 and social charity. So there are advisors who work in this area who can help you do this efficiently, effectively, economically, easily. It is not what it used to be. It's not as convoluted and difficult because technology has made it a lot easier. So it's a way for you to join the world of financialism. We are stressing today the idea that there's a difference between socialism and financialism. And socialism is the economic control by a larger entity, whereas financialism is the individual taking care of their own financial issue. There's financial well-being, making sure that the financial well-being exists. And if we can get all individuals to have financial well-being, the world will be a better place all around. So if you get your own house in order, you get your own family in order, that gets the community in order, the community gets the state in order, the state gets the nation in order, and the nation gets the world in order. That's how Confucius had it. So we're not creating anything new. We're just stating what is and what has been. We don't want to be in the world of the absurd. We need to get into the world of the reality and bring down the recognition of issues to ourselves, our individual means to solve our problems. We have it within us to solve the problems. We just have to know how to do that effectively. And the government has given us tools to do that. I think it's a very difficult thing for a lot of people right now who are going through this inflationary process, the inflation that we're suffering, and also the increase in prices as a result of the inflation. In fact, people who are on fixed incomes, like people who are living on Social Security, right now they have really taken about a 10% cut. It's not being explained that way, but basically that's what happened. If you're living on your Social Security, your money is worth less. And you don't have to go back in history too far to know what kind of upheaval that can bring. When the German pension plan became worthless because the marks were worth less, it became a real nightmare for the nation. So we have at this point in our history the opportunity to change what's going on. We can change from this Social Security reliance to increasing our income using Social Security, and that's what's going to happen over the hopefully the next 30 years, where we can remove the burden of the debt. Inflation, of course, reduces that debt. The government benefits actually from inflation by the debt becoming worth less. So you have to make sure that you're going to see a future that doesn't have this kind of inflation going on. And the primary cause of that is government spending. And government does spend on non-governmental organizations, and we want to change that. We're not saying that charities shouldn't be supported. We're saying that non-governmental organizations should not be supported by the government because they're non-governmental organizations. So we want to make sure that the funding is there through endowment, and that can be done by helping yourself, by creating social charity, new income that you can rely on later in life, while also being philanthropic and eventually leaving property to charity after you're gone, after you no longer need the income. It's a very simple process. It's very logical. I like to call it Occam's razor. It's the simplest route to solve our problems here in this country. We can talk about socialism and financialism on another show when we have a guest who can speak to that. We are always looking for a way to explain what we're doing simply, and it isn't always easy. But this is Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness, and you can see a lot about what we're all about on our Facebook page, Social Charity, Social SE Charity at Facebook. You can also see it on YouTube, Amazon Music. We're also our own radio station, which is route664.org/radio, route664.org/radio, and listen to the great music that we have produced by Wanda Miles, who is the mastermind behind that radio station and puts out all of the programs that are there as well, with Just Jazz, Classy Sunday. We have the Soulful Sounds of Steve Cole, great DJ. Those are on Sundays, and you can have a great day of cleaning up your house to great music. So join us on our radio station at route664.org/radio. Thank you for joining us today on Route 64, the Road to Human Kindness, and thank you, community newspapers, for giving us the opportunity to speak to the public. We'll be right back.